Hi, I'm Craig Rowland, founder of Sandfly Security. Today, we're going to talk to you about kind of an old school tactic on Linux, but still works today, and we still see it today, and that is giving a default Linux user account a password and ability to log in. This is something that could fly under the radar unless you're paying very close attention. So let's go over it right now. For today's demonstration, we're going to go into the Sandfly user interface. Sandfly is an agentless endpoint detection and response product. We also do SSH key tracking, password auditing, drift detection, and much more without deploying endpoint agents. But for today's demonstration, we simply scan one of our victim hosts here, which is called Sandfly Victim, and we've discovered 5 very severe level alerts on this. So first of all, we found that a default user is a password present, a default user logged in a couple times, a default user is a shell present, and a system account user ID has a password present on it. So we'll just start at the top here and work our way down. This is the most severe alert. We've discovered a user here called UCP. That user UCP is a default Linux user. It has a password hash present. What do we mean by that? Well, let me switch over here to my terminal, and we're going to cat out the etc password file. Now, basically, on every Unix system on the planet, you're going to have default accounts that are present. And on Linux, there's no exception. You're going to get root, daemon, bin, sys, sync, games, man, LP. This is the user of interest. Now, why'd I pick UCP? Well, maybe for nostalgia. UCP is an ancient protocol used mainly through the 1980s as part of the Unix systems back then on the early ARPANET days. But it's still present today on virtually every Linux system that's out there as a username. Now, what's interesting about this account is we have the account name here, and it also, though, if I cat out the etc shadow file, it also has a password on it. Now, normally the system account should all be starred out right here, right? Nobody, and this means basically the password is disabled and nobody can log in. Somebody has given this an account a password on it. They've also done something else. If you were paying attention, they've also given it a bash login shell. So instead of being no login, which is typical, someone's given this a login shell. And this is basically allowing anyone to log in as this user. In fact, I can log in right now as this user here. This is my attacker box. I'm going to make a directory called temp hacked. I'm going to enter the password. Now at this point it says, hey, there's no home directory, but it doesn't matter. The command was executed. If I go back onto this system here, and I look at that temp hacked, I see that someone made a file here just now called temp hacked. It's owned by the UCP user. So this user has full authentication privileges to this box, even though they don't have a home directory. As long as they have a valid shell, they can execute commands. And this is exactly what we see over here on the Sandfly console. I'm going to switch back again here. We saw that user logged in. I can see also here that a default user, UCP, is a default account normally disabled, but has logged into this host within the past 24 hours. So again, we see down here that they logged in. I can see all their host name information here that they logged in from. Same deal here is we use the last log. The last log is also reporting an entry for the default user account UCP logged into the past 24 hours. Again, very suspicious activity. Another thing we have here was I talked about is we actually flagged that the UCP user has a valid shell. He said the default user UCP has a login shell present of bin bash. And sure enough, we do. We could go down here, we could scroll this data. We can also scroll through our forensic data here, and we can see sure enough that they have a shell of bin bash. This should not be allowed to happen. So we're describing here that Linux build shouldn't have any shell to allow login. And so this is why this is flagged as suspicious. So again, we're kind of rounding everything up here as to why this would happen. Again, the only reason why this would happen, why a password would be on this and someone would give it a shell, in our experience, is they put a backdoor on the system. But this is still used today. Don't think because it's simple that it doesn't work, because I guarantee you it does. This also falls into what we call a dormant attack. A dormant attack is something that was done to a Linux host that is not active in memory. So if you're just running a kind of a traditional EDR solution, it might not see this type of thing. This is the type of stuff you have to deliberately go out and hunt for on your Linux systems, because it's not going to be something that's going to show up in a traditional process list or things like that. Finally, the last thing we flagged here is Basically, the user UCP has a password hash present, but they have the UID of 10. So, a kind of a little weird thing that a lot of people don't know is if your UID is under 1,000, it's generally considered a system level account. And system level accounts generally do not have passwords present. Yeah, you might get root or something like that, but for most of the time, the system level accounts are there to help you set up system services, Apache, Nginx, MySQL, things like that. So they're going to run with an account that does not have login access, but they're going to be generally UID of less than 1,000. What we're saying here basically is that this UCP account has a UID of 10, as you can see here, but someone is allowing this to log in. So just in general, this is something that I advise you to look out for on your systems. If you see a password show up on a default account, you should be very, very, very suspicious of it. This is something we have seen, not just here for the UCP, but we've seen it for the PHP user, www data user, other users like that. They give it a password to log in frequently as a web shell backdoor or other backdoor type activity. So it's something I highly advise you to check out on your systems. Make sure it's not happening to you. So anyway, if you enjoyed that video, please subscribe. Check out our other ones on Linux incidents, response, and forensics. We have a lot of them out there. I hope you enjoyed it again. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Craig Rowland from Sandfly Security. Thanks again, and bye.